Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Well, today we're going to be talking about a fun story. Windows is against my religion. No, I'm not going crazy nor joining a cult. Maybe I should create one. It's the Switch to Linux cult? I don't know. But from Reddit, this was an interesting one about a month ago, and this dropped on the Matrix server, so I thought this was a great one. Didn't want to cover it in the weekly news roundup. Thought this was good for its own video. There's a lot of fun stuff to talk about. So in this person, let me zoom this up so we can see it a little bit better. There we are. So in this Reddit, Ask HR Reddit, and an employee claims she can't use Microsoft Windows for religious reasons. Now, before we get into reading it, religious reasons itself can be an interesting idea here. So first and foremost, religious reasons, some states just keep it as religious reasons, and other states have a conscientious objection for people who are atheists, don't have a specific religion, but still seriously object to something. To suggest there is a religion out there that would be anti-Windows, I don't know of any organized one. Some states would say that a religious accommodation must account for some serious, somewhat mainline religion. Judaism, which is going to require a number of holidays. Islam will require specific times of prayer. Christianity, there's really nothing in Christianity that forces you to do something as far as praying at a specific time or a specific day off. But it could have things like the Hobby Lobby cases. Certain forms of contraception might be against the religion. So these are all different elements to think about. But for the atheists who don't have a specific religion, there is a conscientious objection is what is usually also termed under this. There could very well be a good conscientious objection. I'm simply not using Windows. Would I ever take that approach if I needed to get a job? No, not necessarily. But if you're expecting me in my own home office to work on a Windows computer, you're going to be providing that for me. And I'm going to be using that explicitly and exclusively for your work. And so that is an element that will come up in this discussion. I also did cover in the past, the Amish that do have computers for like business type stuff actually tend to use, the one documentary I saw, the Amish was actually using Sparky Linux. So there you have, maybe they were Amish, although if they're Amish, they're probably not working in a corporate office. And then somewhere in the bowels of this post, there's also mentions a offsect of LDS. So Mormonism. That not mainstream Mormonism, but an offsect of Mormonism. There apparently is one of those that does not want the mainstream corporate operating systems either. Very interesting, though. And as we start and we look at this this article post, it's interesting to consider all of these different factors together. So let's go ahead and have a look at the article. I recently hired a new employee for my team. Everyone thinks she is a great addition, and she is clearly very talented and demonstrated this in her interviews. The problem came up during onboarding when we supplied her with her company laptop. She said she would need it configured in a Linux-based operating system because her religion does not allow the use of Apple or Microsoft-owned operating systems. We only currently have hardware configurations for Mac OS and Windows, and our expectation is that she will use Windows along with the rest of our team. She says she can fulfill all of her job duties without Windows, and I am inclined to believe her, but corporate policy dictates Windows, and my management is not on board with her request for Linux. What actions can either one, I take as a manager to protect her rights and get upper management on board with her religion, or two, I take against her with management for failing to fulfill her job duties? I've never come across a situation like this, and I'm completely confounded as to how I should handle this. All right, we're going to tear this post apart, and it's going to be fun. First, and some of this is, I did read through, I don't know if I read through 100% of the comments, but I did read through a lot of the comments prior to this. Sorry, I'm not a super talented r/ reader, but maybe we should add an r/ section. That'd be fun, right? Let me know in the comments. Should we do an r/ section in lieu of like distro wars, which I just don't have the capability of doing in my current setup. All right, so first and foremost, I agree with people in the comments. Why is it that it is during the onboarding process that they learn about this religion? We'll just use the term religion here. So why did she not mention this in the interviews? I know that every time I guess I got to think back to it. No, I guess they never really did ask me my take when I worked at the universities I worked at. We go through the onboarding. I think it was during the onboarding process, not the interview process, that they asked you, Windows or Mac. They didn't say, hey, what computer system? Now, if I were to be teaching at some college again, I wouldn't be like, well, I demand to use Linux. I'm not sure I would do that. Now, I might do the vast majority of my job on Linux and just port stuff over to Windows as I need it. If they provide me that Windows computer, that's cool. And every one of those places is providing the computer. So that raises a few questions. Obviously, one of the factors that's on the side is that you really cannot ask much about religions during the interview process. And I actually had somebody who did. See, I was taking over the one guy left the chemistry department. He just out of the blue ghosted the department for the spring semester. They brought a guy out of retirement who was still living in town, and that guy was on the hiring committee, and he's the guy that asked me about the religious activities listed in my CV. And the department chair's like, you can't ask that type of question. It's just like, I said, I don't care. I'll answer it. Yeah, and that's where I understand how this. So some people say in the comment, why is this the first time? You're not allowed to ask about religion. But now that she gets the job and they say, hey, what, Windows or Mac? She says, well, I can't use either. It's against my religion. I think with such a weird religious case, I mean, it's one thing to say you're Jewish or Muslim, you're Christian, whatever else. It's one thing to suggest those and to say, oh, okay, that's mainstream. Okay, we have a policy in place because this is a well accepted. What if I say I am of the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster and I must have pasta every third Thursday for lunch exactly at 12 o'clock? You must accommodate that. Whereas... May you be touched by his noodly appendage, I guess. And so it does not surprise me. Some people said in the comments, why is this the first time I'm hearing about it? A lot of the reason is because you cannot ask about religious accommodations. But with such a weird religious accommodation, assuming it is a really religious one and not a troll, maybe this is something you bring up yourself and be like, hey, I know you're not allowed to ask about it. I'm going to tell you there's a lot of computers around here. I can't touch either Windows or Mac because of my religion. That might be pertinent to bring up if you happen to join the cult of Switched to Linux, which, by the way, as the cult leader of Switch to Linux, I'm going to tell you it is okay if you must use a Windows or Mac computer to do your work duties at home. That is okay. But to be a full-fledged member, your personal stuff must be Linux. It must be Linux. Switch to Linux. All right. So all the snarkiness aside here, she said it would need to be configured. They said they only have hardware configurations for Mac OS and Windows, and the expectation would be Windows along with the rest of the team. That might have been something in the job description. We use Windows in this particular department / part of the job. That might be something in there. And if she comes in and says, well, I can't use Windows, you come back and say, well, it was in the job description. We have a little bit of a leg to stand on. I guess some people, though, assume that's the case. Now, the other thing that I'm caught up on here is it says corporate policy. This means it's a bigger job, not a smaller one. So for some of the people saying, what type of accommodation can you do? There may or may not be one. Now we're talking about corporate policy. We're talking about morons who are incompetent making up all of the rules. So who knows? These guys don't even know what Linux is, and they're the IT guys. That's frightening. All right, so she says she can fulfill all the job duties on Linux. I would generally agree with that, unless it was very, very specific use of very, very specific software. Example, in our science lab, we had, at that time, it was groundbreaking stuff. but it was called real-time PCR. And what it would do is it was groundbreaking stuff at the time. This is going back 20 years now in the research. You do a PCR cycle, just like, these PCR tests. You do a PCR cycle, but you take an image of the sample looking at a marker after every single cycle. The machine was so specific, it had to work on Windows XP. Yes, this is right when the entire world was switching to Vista, which was completely incompatible with the software. So we had to keep a Windows XP system around for a while to keep this, $20,000 machine up and running. So that's kind of the case. So you can understand if there's something very, very specific like that. I can't run the real-time PCR because my religion says I can't touch Windows. Oh, sorry, boss. I just can't do the test, But also, to what degree are we talking about? So she says, what action can I take as a manager to protect her rights, or take against her with management for failing her duties? So this is a very interesting one here. All right. So let's just have a brief look at a few of the more notable comments. This person here apparently doesn't care for these accommodations. The nice thing about religious accommodations, they can be easily denied if they have more than the de minimis cost to the employer. So setting up an entire operating system and maintaining the security for it would increase the costs a lot. That's the case. I do really love it. Somebody down here in the comments said, it's not acceptable for them to take on extra software licenses for Linux. I guess Red Hat, that's more of a service, anything else. Of course, we have glitter stickers. What religion is this? The Church of Tux? Of course. Should we call ours the Church of Tux? Or should we call ours the Church of Switch? The Church of No Windows, Church of Emacs. And then, of course, this guy, a little bit more honest. Yeah, probably just some form of religion that has either freedom at its main core or anti-corporate at its main core. One of those two would probably match what is going on. And this person says, I suspect this is the first in a long line of baloney you'll need to deal with, probably meaning with this person, and I agree. They're jumping on first day. They're like, all right, guys, I can't use any of your computers. I need my own Linux computer. I bet you're going to have to deal with a lot of weird accommodations. This religion is going to form itself right before your very eyes based on the personal preference of this employee. I can't. Find someone else. Is definitely going to sue the company for something. See, you can deny religious accommodations under some circumstances. And the biggest factor that I see that she would probably not win a lawsuit in this case is the fact that this is some weird, not real religion necessarily, more of a philosophy. But now we have to question, is this an estate which has conscientious objection rules? No advice, but I'm genuinely curious. Be interested if they're taking the path of Christian socialists or Satanists or something else. Whatever it is, it must really be sincerely held religious beliefs. And so, with that being said, it's just like, I don't know what's going on with this. I have no earthly idea. There's somebody down here mentions the Amish. Of course, they would use Linux, but if it's Amish, it's not going to be working for a company. But we didn't get any final statement down here. There are some decent points in here, but this guy here mentions it does not have to be an organized religion, but then we have to deal with what is it people are making up in order to get their preferences or things like that. So this says Title 7 defines religion very broadly. It includes traditional organized religions. It also includes religious beliefs that are new, uncommon, and not part of a formal church or sect, held only by a small number of people. And this is going to change a little bit based on which state you are in. I like this one here. Linux isn't secure enough for corporate America. Corporate America's run on Linux. Maybe not on the desktop computers, I'll grant you that, but the rest of it certainly is. And maybe if more people use Linux on the desktop too, we'd have a lot less problems. I don't know. So that was kind of funny. But there you have it, guys. In the event that you want to go the radical extreme Linux approach, you can always just go into your job and say, I just converted to the Church of Switched, and I can no longer use Windows. Of course, in mine, you are allowed to use it for work accommodations, just not for your personal stuff. You're gonna have to do some penguin penance if you happen to use anything but Linux for your personal stuff. But we do allow you to use a work computer running Windows or Mac to do your work job. So that's okay with the cult of Switched, because, we need those greenbacks coming in for whatever. But with that being said, though, all that aside, what do you guys think about this? Do you think this is a serious troll, or is this somebody being serious? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.